I genuinely used to study for like 10 minutes and then scroll for 20 and just call it a break. But then I made these 3 small changes and now I can lock in and do productive study sessions for 3 hours straight. No apps, no caffeine, and definitely not Pomodoro. What I found in myself and other students I talk to is that it's not a matter of not knowing what to study or how to study, it's the fact that we just can't stay focused. So if you copy these 3 things, here's how to stay laser focused during your study sessions. So the first thing is, you know when you sit down to study and somehow your brain's already bored before you've even opened the book? And that's not laziness, it's actually dopamine debt. Most students spike their dopamine throughout the day. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Netflix, and wonder why they find studying boring. And there's a scientific reason for all of this. It's because you roll over throughout the day, you grab your phone and you get 500 micro hits of novelty and dopamine. And by the time you're ready to study, your brain's like, what is this? This is so boring. And this is why focus feels painful. It's because there is literally a huge gap between the dopamine that you were just doing scrolling TikTok and then suddenly you have to slam on the brakes and try to do a low dopamine activity such as studying. That big gap is what it makes it so painful and difficult to do. And that's why you feel burnt out even before you start studying. So here's what I started doing, and I swear this changed everything. So basically, the ideal thing is you want to try and do all the high dopamine things later in the day. And I talked about this in my other video, right? About how I'm a top student with 8 hours of screen time a day. But basically studying is easiest in the morning because you've just reset your dopamine and your baseline is low. And so you want to study before scrolling Netflix, checking messages, etc. because this is where you'll be the most focused in the day. And this is exactly why when you wake up and study, you're going to be really focused. So you want your dopamine graph throughout the day to kind of look like this, a gradual increase. So you get all the hard and boring stuff out of the way first, early in the day, and then you could do stuff later. That reward after focus sequence does 2 things. First, it trains your brain to associate studying with pleasure instead of pain, which is just, as you can imagine, really good. And then also it resets your baseline dopamine, meaning that the next time you study, it will feel easier to get into that exact same groove. Basically, you're telling your brain's reward system to crave focus. You can also use this idea throughout the day, right? Because it is really hard to just kind of not check your messages until the end of the day, right? Or use your phone. So this is what you want to do. Let's say you study and then you just had like a 1 hour scrolling break, right? And not ideal, but it happens. Then afterwards, what you want to do is instead of just trying to straight away go to studying because that gap is really big, instead of it being like a straight like cliff drop, you want it to be kind of a nice ease into it. So you want to do a midway activity, something that's less fun, but it's not as high dopamine as scrolling or whatever it was you're doing. So for me, this kind of looks like listening to some music or going for a walk. What I really like to do is practice the piano or read a book before going into studying. So it's kind of like that, having a midpoint, right? You are scrolling and then you do this and then you do this, and then that calms your brain down, and starting studying is easy and you can stay focused for way longer. So tomorrow morning when you wake up, don't touch your phone and stay focused. Sit down and do 25 minutes of one focus block. And after you do some like the high dopamine activity like scrolling on Netflix, and after your break, instead of trying to go straight into studying, ease your way back in, focusing on this kind of your daily dopamine graph and having smooth transitions, ideally like this, but if it's going like this, having smooth transitions, not like badam, badam, badam. This is how you make your study sessions far more focused. Speaking of staying focused, one of the biggest distractions for me when I was studying would be switching between apps to like control music. That's why I've been using the Opera browser with the new Spotify Sonic theme. It's literally built for people who work or study with music on. Here's the cool part, the Sonic theme visually reacts to your music in real time. When I'm playing something chill like lo-fi or classical, the whole browser glows softly, but when I switch to something more upbeat, it actively pulses with the beat. It turns your workplace into this immersive, music reactive vibe, like the browser's alive. And with Opera's detachable music player, you can move it anywhere, inside or outside the browser, and it stays visible while you work. You can pause, skip, change songs without ever breaking focus. It even automatically pauses when you're watching a video, which saves you from that awkward double audio moment. Plus, Opera's partnered with Spotify. You can connect your account straight from the sidebar, so no app switching, no distractions. And here's the best part, for a limited time you can get up to 3 months off of Spotify Premium for free, or 2 months if you already had Premium before. This offer varies by country, so hit the link below in the description to check yours out. And honestly, it's the easiest way to make your focus setup look and feel next level, and keep your music flowing without breaking concentration. The second thing is friction engineering, building an environment that forces focus. So even after I fixed my dopamine cycle, right, I still would catch myself losing focus every 10 minutes. And it wasn't because I was tired, and it wasn't even because I didn't care. It's because my environment was literally built for distraction. Like my phone was on my desk, 20 Chrome tabs were open with YouTube and Discord pinging in the background. And I'd tell myself every time that I'd ignore it, but that never happened, right? Because what I realized is this, focus isn't just about willpower, it's also about friction. Your brain will always take the path of least resistance. So instead of fighting that, I started to use that to my advantage. So here's what I did. I made distractions really hard. to reach. When I study, my phone's in another room, not face down, not on silent, like none of this, like literally physically away. Because something that's out of reach, your brain naturally stops checking for it. Even tiny friction changes like logging out of social media, switching desks for studying, not having YouTube and 20 Chrome tabs open. All of this tells your brain that this space equals focus. Next, you want to make focus easy to start. The night before, I set up my study space so it's literally zero effort to begin with. Notes open, pen ready, no clutter. And that way, when I sit down, there's no warm up. My brain sees the setup and goes, okay, we're in study mode. It's like muscle memory, but for focus. Then I also use anchor objects. I have one specific playlist that I only use for studying. Over time, my brain links this playlist to studying and cues with deep work. So the second I'm listening to this, focus actually happens far easier. The goal here isn't to be perfectly disciplined, right? It's to design your space so that focus happens by default. Because when distractions are one click away, it's easy. Even a top student, the most disciplined person in the world, loses. Because when focus is the least path of resistance, even average students can focus for hours. There is something called the FOGG behavior model, and it basically encapsulates all of this in a graph. And you guys can check out, I've talked about it in videos before. But the TLDR, the summary is, let's say you have no intention of eating a cookie. You don't even really want a cookie. You weren't even thinking about it. But let's say your mom brought them in on a plate and put them in the desk in front of you. Even though you probably had no intention of eating that cookie. Because it's there, you're probably like, no way, I might as well, and you end up eating it. That's the FOGG behavior model, and it basically says, even if you don't feel like doing a certain thing, if the friction is really low, you're going to end up doing it. That also works in the opposite way. If you really feel like doing it, but there's a lot of friction, you're probably not going to do it. For example, let's imagine you're on a camping trip and you really crave like, I don't know, marshmallows, but the nearest store is like a 20-minute walk in the dark, and it's also been raining, so it's really wet and soggy, and you don't want to get out of your tent. You're probably not going to end up having that, what was it I was saying, marshmallow, even though you really want it. So the point is, make studying really easy, so even if you don't feel like it, you end up doing it. Make distractions really hard to do, so that even if you feel like doing it, you end up not. That is the aim of the game. Before we get onto the focus feedback loop, which is how to lock back in instantly, I just want to draw your attention to the Student Accelerator, which is my student program for ambitious students. And it's basically my entire system on how I study, how I got the grades that I did in minimal time and in an efficient way. As you can see, my students have had such success with this program, and recently I've added far more resources and revision notes, question banks, as well as exclusive lectures and courses that I've made. If this interests you and you will become a top student, get the grades that you deserve, make sure to check this out first link in the description. But let's get back onto the third one, the focus feedback loop. So you've fixed your dopamine levels, right? And you've built a distraction-proof setup. But here's the real test. You sit down, you start strong, and then 20 minutes later, your mind's on autopilot. You're thinking about snacks, you're daydreaming, YouTube, your crush, anything but the thing that you should be doing. And that's actually not failure, that's normal. This is the normal rhythm of focus. The difference between top students and distracted ones isn't that top students never lose focus, it's just that they notice it faster and they recover immediately. This is a very key concept from the book Flow by Mihail Csikszentmihalyi. I don't know, I'll know how to pronounce it one day, but basically it's the very principle that athletes and professionals use when it comes to the flow state, and here's how you can do it. This is the 3-step protocol that you need to be following. Firstly, recognize it early. The second you catch yourself zoning out, don't fight it, just say, I'm out of focus. That one line is powerful, because as soon as you label a distraction, your brain pulls out of autopilot and back into control. Then you want to reset your state. Don't just force focus, reset it. Stand up, stretch, breathe, take one deep inhale through your nose and exhale out of your mouth, and that 10-second reset tells your brain, okay, fresh start. Think of it like hitting refresh on a laggy tab, fast, clean, and instant clarity. Then 3, you want to re-engage small. Don't jump back into the big task. Do the smallest possible action. 1 line of notes, 1 equation, 1 sentence. This micro win reignites your momentum, and focus loves movement, not pressure. This is the focus feedback loop, and you can use this anytime you catch yourself getting out of focus, and you can use it to train your brain to bounce back faster. Lose focus, catch it, reset, then restart. Over time, this recovery becomes automatic, and suddenly you can study for 3 hours without even realizing it. So these are the 3 changes that maximize my focus: dopamine loading, friction engineering, and focus feedback loop. You don't need timers, Pomodoro, or any fancy app or caffeine. You just need to work with your brain, not against it. And remember, if you want me to build your personal study, full focus study system, one that makes studying effortless and consistent that you use for the rest of your life, you can check that out in the Student Accelerator. I'll show you how to assign study habits, build your routines, and get coaching every week so you can lock in for real. Doors are open, link in the description. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it useful. If you did, please leave a comment, that would be very nice. And I'll see you in the next video. Happy studying, stay locked in.